Spoilers ahead. Spoilers ahead.
The Honorable, the Chief Podcaster and Associate Podcaster of Max Mike Movies. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. All persons wanting to hear chatter about movies are admonished to draw near and give their attention, for the podcasters are now sitting. Bumpy save the United States and these honorable podcasters. Our new episode in the series Semi-Real People is now in session with Chiefy Weefy podcaster Mike Luce and astonishingly associative podcaster Max Levine presiding. Sitting on the docket of the Bay is 2018's On the Basis of Sex, a biopic about the early career of the notorious R.B.G. herself.
Red, blue, and green?
That's her, the late lamented Justice Ruth Bader Ginsberg. Ooh. Draw near like cattle, and ye shall be heard.
Is that H-E? Oh, never mind.
That's H-E-R-D, yes.
I'm going to go with fired for 200.
I always wanted to do that. I worked hard on that opening. That was an actual modification of the way the bailiff opens the Supreme Court sessions, kind of. Possibly less reference to Bumpy.
Well, that's the problem with our government today. There's too little reference to Bumpy.
That's right. We're going to form the All Bumpy Party, which will be dedicated to the murder and devouring of Bumpy.
Hey, speaking of Bumpy, there's a way for our listeners to earn some Bumpy bucks.
Yes, and how might that be? That? Well, they could answer our poll question.
Ooh.
Yes. And this week's poll question, which technically comes from me, except for the fact that Mike came up with it.
Well, don't you want to answer last week's first? That's how we do that.
But we can't do this week, because that was last week, next week. Yes, let's, fine. We'll do last week's poll question.
Fired for 400.
Our last week's question was, is there any actor who, when you see their name attached to a movie, makes you go, nope, no way, not going to watch it? And conversely, is there any actor whose attachment to a movie guarantees that you'll watch it? And we got a bunch of pretty interesting responses.
Cool.
From one of our longtime listeners and longtime relative of Mike, Val. Her answer was that she will not watch Sacha Baron Cohen. And if there's anything that she will watch whenever they come out, it's anything that Wes Anderson has made.
Oh.
Interesting choices.
I won't not watch Sacha Baron Cohen. I just haven't.
I liked the first Borat movie, and he doesn't repel me. I can't say that I would like, oh boy, the new Sacha Baron Cohen's out, I want to go see it. I've seen him in a couple of things. I'm told he's really good in The Trial of Chicago 7. I mean, he got an Oscar nod for that.
He doesn't repel me. High praise indeed.
Yeah, high praise indeed. Yeah.
Who else we got?
Yes, from our international contingent, Vince. He hadn't really thought about it, but he tends to keep away from Mel Gibson movies.
I can't imagine why. Duck!
Yeah.
Duck, if you're Jewish.
He liked his early forms. Yes, we did start all the wars after all. And,
and space lasers.
Yep. Basically, at some point, his brain melted, and he turned into his racist father. And but the ones that Vince will almost always go see is John Hurt.
Oh,
which is a really good choice, because John Hurt. First off, that gives you a hell of a lot of different kinds of movies, because John Hurt appears in anything, all kinds of stuff.
I mean, he's not Michael Caine, but.
No, he's not Michael Caine, because, I'm pretty sure Michael Caine showed up in my graduation video.
Also, I think John Hurt's a little more selective, shall we say?
I think John Hurt is less of the anything for a paycheck kind.
I mean, quite honestly, if they had done a live version of the Harlem Globetrotters are on Gilligan's Island, I think Michael Caine would have
They did a live version of the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island.
Was Michael Caine in it?
I think he was dressed as a robot, but yes.
Sure. Did he swim to Hawaii?
Because there's a robot in it. He did not swim to Hawaii.
Okay.
And from our boy, the Wheeze, saying that Tom Cruise is one that he generally avoids, just doesn't get the appeal. I can't think why.
Was
I
that
can't
your...
I can't do the laugh. Tom Cruise has developed this really creepy laugh.
Well, the reason you can't do it is because you're too tall. Oh!
Ouch!
Yeah.
But Weeze also says that Christian Bale is an actor whose films he always looks forward to.
Yeah.
The man has range. He really does. He's pointing out, I didn't know he was playing this part. He's apparently playing Gore the God Butcher in Thor 4.
Ah! That very popular and well-known first-tier Marvel villain.
I thought Gore, and that's with 2 R's, by the way,
it is.
was one of those monsters from Journey into Mystery, Blarg or Goom or Fin Fang Foom.
Yeah,
which
before Marvel,
real character, by the way,
with purple pants.
That was actually an inside joke. Apparently, the Marvel writers were so disgusted with the comics code and so bored with what they had to do because they could do monster comics, but they had to be incredibly bland. And they got so they were just like, nobody noticed we were naming these monsters after basically goofy sound effects.
Yeah. And then they finally decided they could do superheroes again. But, Max,
yes,
is there any actor that you yourself go, "Wah!" and run screaming into the hills?
I have thought about it. I can't really say that there is. I mean, there's sort of a combination of writer-director in that I cannot bring myself to go watch a Woody Allen movie anymore.
Gee, why?
Yeah, funny that. I just can't. But
he makes family-friendly.
I'm not saying that there might not be a point where I can't go and watch one of his old ones, because some of his old ones are really funny.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'd have to say him. How about you? Is there somebody who... Well, and I don't know if there's really anybody... Well, honestly, if I hear Scarlett Johansson is in a movie, that is a big draw. I think she's terrific. I think she has great range.
That's why you go see her, is her range.
Hey, I just wanted gorgeous. I could look at her pictures, but she's a terrific actor.
Okay.
So what about you? Is there anyone who you see him in a... Excuse me. Can you narrow it down to one person who, if you see them in a movie, you won't go see the movie?
No. Because
you can't narrow it down.
There's 2.
Two.
I generally avoid Tom Cruise because I don't need to see him save the world. Honestly, I swear it's going to get to the point where it's literally him making a movie that only he watches. I think it's just going to get to that. And it's like, I don't, but I like if, I don't know, Minority Report pops up, I'll watch that. I don't hate him. And of course we watched one of his films again, which was
Magnolia,
where he's really, really good, amazingly enough. So I won't pay for new films, but it's not like Tom Cruise, No, but there is an actor that, for whatever reason, if I'll sit there and watch a preview, and if the preview looks good and I'm interested, and he pops up, I will not go. That is Ben Stiller. And if you really want to make sure I'm not going to go, make sure Owen Wilson is there with him.
I thought you were going to say Nicolas Cage, except I know you love National Treasure.
I don't love it, but, well, we may get to that. There's a couple of his roles that I will watch. Strangely, that's one of them. I don't know why. But yeah, Ben Stiller, I don't know what it is about him, but he just rubs me the wrong way. And Owen Wilson really just rubs me the wrong way. I can't stand them. And I want to go see more Wes Anderson films, but he tends to hire them.
Yeah, he tends to hire both of and both the Wilson brothers and Ben
the
Stiller's
Wilson sisters.
She's the cute one.
Yeah. Gary Oldman, I'm kind of in on just about anything he does. I love to see where he's going to go because I never know. Like Christian Bale, although to me more so, he is my favorite actor with a capital A, not because he's acting. I'm so tortured and act. No, he's just, you never know what he's going to be, and sometimes it takes me a while to realize it's him.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
New poll question.
Yes. Just for next week, what movie do you wish never had a sequel? Multiple sequels, single sequels,
like Casablanca.
Pod racing. Anyway, not that I'm trying to drop any hints.
So what movie do you wish didn't have a sequel?
Did not have a sequel.
Hey, you can contact us with that answer and earn some bumpy bucks.
Yes, we'll tell you about that at the end of the show.
Yeah, bumpy bucks. They're a thing.
Yes.
Although Max wishes they weren't. But we have a new movie this week, and I'm betting, and I think I'm not going to lose any money on this, that you have some trivia. The show.
Yes, I do. Not very much. There isn't a whole lot on this movie, but there's some. So, on the basis of sex, budget, $20 million, worldwide gross, $38 million. Not so good.
Failure.
Now, this is, I guess, a spoiler, but Ruth Bader Ginsberg actually appears at the end of this movie as herself. And the director, Mimi Leder, really wanted her to be in the movie. She wrote to her and was really happy. She got a response that she said, yes, the appearance took 3 takes because Ginsberg wouldn't allow any more.
Well, she was like 90?
She was in her 80s at that point, yeah. She also attended the film's premiere along with a couple of her obscure friends, Gloria Steinem and Hillary Clinton.
Oh, they're still around, huh?
Oh, yeah. And unfortunately, a few days later, that's when she was diagnosed with the cancerous nodules on her lungs. Apparently, she was delighted with the film, even the sex scene.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's more
not
of a
very racy, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it was for me because I wasn't expecting it. And it's like, I'm about to watch a Supreme Court justice do it! Ah!
Yeah, it's a very strange moment. And even though she plays their daughter, I think it's Jane Ginsberg, Kaylee Spaney is only 13 years younger than Felicity Jones and 11 years younger than Armie Hammer.
Oops.
Well, the first case covered in Ginsberg's contracts class at Harvard Law was Hawkins v. McGee, 1943. This is also the first case covered in the contracts class in The Paper Chase from 1973, also set at Harvard Law School.
Yeah.
Harvard doesn't change a lot.
No.
We'll talk about the question of how accurate this movie is a little later, but at the film's climax, when Ginsberg is speaking before the 10th Appellate Court, she freezes up under the men's scrutiny and ends up ceding her time only to make a last-second recovery during her rebuttal. This is fictionalized. There was no rebuttal. Ginsberg didn't need it.
No.
According to the lawyer DeHart, who was there, answering every question, the novice litigator made exactly the points she planned. Stiepelman has admitted to punching up the drama a little bit. Stiepelman, as he put it, Ruth Ginsberg never flubbed an argument in her life.
Mm. Well, he got away with it. You know why he got away with it, right?
Why?
He's her nephew.
Yeah, that's true.
So, that's it for trivia?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, you'd best tell us the plot.
Plot, yes. On the Basis of Sex sums up one of the major legal challenges made by one of recent history's most famous legislators, Ruth Bader Ginsberg. This movie follows R.B.G. from her days as one of 9 women studying law at Harvard, through her attempts to work at prestigious law firms in New York, all of which turned her down almost entirely because she was a woman, to her arguing the landmark case Moritz v. Commissioner of Internal Revenue, where an unmarried man, Charles Moritz, was the primary caregiver for his aging mother, hired a nurse to help out, and then tried to deduct the nurse's salary as a caregiver exemption, only to find that this deduction/exemption only applied to women. Ruth Bader Ginsberg sees this as an opportunity to challenge laws that support gender inequality and fights to have this law overturned. Throughout her career, she is supported by her husband Marvin and her occasionally contentious but loving children. This is a view into the early days of one of the best-known jurists of our time. That's pretty much it.
The Lowdown. I thought it was Martin.
You're right.
There.
That's $5 bumpy bucks for you.
Woo! I'm on my way to a new car.
Wait, I'm sorry. 50 bumpy bucks to Gryffindor.
Up yours, Snape. Griffin Puff wins. Right, but...
Yeah, one of the things that strikes me about, and they really play this up in the movie, is how tiny Ruth Bader Ginsburg was.
I think the actor, though, is actually taller than she was.
But not by much. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was 5'1". Felicity Jones is 5'3".
Yeah.
So, yeah, she towered over her by 2 inches.
Yeah. When the movie starts, it starts off with something that made me very quickly go, uh-oh.
What?
The first words of the film, do you remember what the first 2 words of the film were?
I do not.
Inspired by.
Ah, yes.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there's some question about that. I looked some of that up. Oddly enough, a lot of the stuff most people say is really accurate. If anything, it kind of tones her down.
Well, let's get to this because it's one of our questions, and we might as well not waste the answer. So one of the questions we ask of all the films was how accurate was the depiction, and my feeling was this film feels really Hollywood. It feels kind of Hallmarky. It feels kind of movie of the week. And I went and looked it up because it's like, okay, here it comes. And same thing. They were like, yeah, that whole thing at the end that you brought up in trivia where she did not flub anything. She never flubbed anything. That's kind of it.
Yeah. And my thing was, when I was watching it, I'm thinking, oh, there's no way the husband was this supportive.
Same thing.
And everyone who knew them, and they had a lot of friends, all said, yes, he was. Yes, he was. Martin, in fact, one of the parts I liked was when Martin was dating her, one of the ways he, as they put it, won her was by emphasizing how much he respected her, not just how hot he thought she was.
Yeah.
And also, yes, he was that tall and that good looking.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of him. The guy was a good looking guy. She was also very cute when she was young.
Yeah. One of the things that I read was that they kind of softened was she basically was known for never having any second dates because, as you pointed out, there were 9 women in her class and all of these Harvard guys. So she would basically be as picky as she wanted. She's like, nope, you.
Yeah, it's really. I like the way they started off. They start off with the Harvard song, 10,000 Men of Harvard. And there she is, this tiny woman in a blue dress among this sea of men in black suits.
Yeah. The problem was I couldn't understand what they were singing, and at first I thought it was some sort of weird German marching song. And then it's like, wait, is that Latin? And then finally I heard the word Harvard, and it's like, oh, okay. All right, now I know where we are.
Well, it's not the Harvard song, but it's a Harvard song.
Yeah. Other things I found that were, these are so small that it merely was surprising that they were this small. Charles Moritz was actually first approached by Marty, not Ruth, and they didn't actually meet face-to-face till 1971 when they were doing the actual appeal to the 10th Circuit Court. She also never met Kenyon, played very well, although very briefly, by Kathy Bates. Kathy Bates is awesome. I like Kathy Bates and everything.
I wish there had been more of her, but she actually isn't much of the story.
No. You should have bought a squirrel. She was there to show that there were women before Ginsberg, and just like she wasn't the only one, and that was cool because Ginsberg never claimed that she was the one and only. So they decided to put her in as a character. Also, I believe the woman in the mock trial was actually transgender.
Wait, the actor or the actual person?
The
no kidding! I didn't get that part.
Also, one thing, I'm amazed that they left this out, especially because Dean Griswold, as played by Sam Waterston, is such a dick.
Oh my God!
So
yes.
There's one point early in the film where her husband, who is a year ahead of her, graduates and gets a job elsewhere in New York. They're obviously in Boston, and she goes to Harvard and said, "Look, I've been here for 2 years. Can I transfer to Columbia and still get my Harvard diploma?" And he's like,
not to mention, "No." Yeah, I've been here for 2 years. I'm the top of my class. I'm on the Harvard Law Review, which I believe she was the first woman to do so.
Yep.
And he was like, no. And she points out, you did this for these other people. He's like, well, that's different circumstances. And he wouldn't say it, but it was because they were men. And there's this wonderful scene, which did happen, by the way.
Yeah.
This is real. When the dean invites the 9 women to his house and basically has them stand up, say who they are, and why they have taken a spot at Harvard Law that could have gone to a man.
Yeah.
And I got to say, Harvard eventually realized what a massive screw-up this was.
And this is the part that I was getting to.
they repeatedly try to offer her a law degree, and every time she refused.
Yep.
So telling them, you can't rewrite history.
Yep. Because she went on to be the top of her class at Columbia as well.
Yeah.
And be on the Columbia Law Review.
She had to go to crappy old Columbia.
Well, and that's the thing is that she's like, look, I put the work in, and I've nursed my husband who had cancer and helped him get his degree, and you won't let me transfer and get my original... No, because Harvard's a dick.
That is one part they over-dramatize. She did not go to his classes.
No,
she would get notes from his colleagues, type them up, and help him write his work and type up his work. So, in effect, she was taking 2 law degrees at once.
Yeah, and that, which is actually, and they had an infant daughter. But I'm betting that she used that experience to her advantage as well she should have, because it's like, well, I know what's coming because I'm doing it with my husband. I was very surprised because for me the film felt very over-polished and, okay, let's overemphasize this as okay, and she did this and that. And it turns out they actually made her, as you said, look less. That scene at the end, I kind of wish they hadn't done that. Because they kept making it seem like the only reason she couldn't be a lawyer is because she had no actual experience in the courtroom. And it turned out that even wasn't an obstacle. Maybe they thought we wouldn't believe it. I don't know. But just having that small person come up and just be like, no, you're all wrong. Let me tell you why. And do it. I was very surprised. I read 3 different articles from 3 different sources because I just typed in what are the inaccuracies on the basis of... And they all came back pretty much the same thing. These tiny little things, but really, no.
And it starts off early on with what looks like it's going to be a tragedy where her husband, Martin, gets testicular cancer.
Yeah.
And, when the doctor tells him that the survivability rate at that point is 5%.
Yeah.
By the way, I looked this up too. Nowadays, the survival rate for testicular cancer, if caught early, the 5-year survival rate is 95%.
Cool.
Got better at it.
Well, and he actually ended up lasting a long time.
He lived to be 78 and had another child.
And they also, they were married for 56 years.
Yep. They were married right up until the end. She survived him by 10 years.
I will have to say, for as nice and supportive a man as he is, they picked a pretty interesting actor to play him.
Now, before we jump all over Mr. Hammer, please remember a lot of this stuff is still allegations.
By a lot of different people.
Which he denies. Yes, the whole sexual assault aspect and the weird fetishes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard. This comes back to a theme that we've visited many times with separating the actor from the performance. It does take me out of it a little bit to look at him and go,
Yeah. Hey, remember that Wicca lady from last week's movie that did that weird blood drinking ceremony with Jim Morrison? Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Only worse, yeah.
So, Armie Hammer, he's somebody I won't willingly go see again. I suppose things haven't been proven, but when so many people keep coming forward with the same story, I don't know. But take that as you will, because this is not a proven case. There's been no actual charges to the best of my knowledge, but it's something to be aware of. I gotta say, there's another actor in this film that I was instantly just like, no, absolutely no way. Do not believe it. Nope, not fooled. Harvard.
Oh, yeah, that was not Harvard.
Oh boy, is it not Harvard. And the
that
best thing about
so not Harvard.
I realized very soon on, it's like, for one thing, I know what Harvard looks like, but I also realized, you're not showing any outside shots of any kind.
No, because the movie was filmed in one day in Washington, D.C. to shoot that shot coming up the steps of the Supreme Court, and the rest was shot in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Well-known home of Harvard, Inc. I don't know. It ain't Harvard University.
I grew up in the area, so for me it's easy. When they get to New York, though, I had another note that says, it's probably not New York either. And it turned out it wasn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just tell it's like, no.
Yep, the skyline's wrong, or the color of the building. There's just something that you just look at it and you go, No, sorry, and I don't care what Soho looked like before it became Soho. That ain't it.
You know what it often is? It's the wideness of the streets. For Boston, forget it, because it's like the end of War of the Worlds with our pal Tom Cruise. We've made it to Boston, and there's these like 4 lanes in each direction, streets in the middle of the city. It's like, no.
You really haven't.
And New York's the same way.
Never mind where the Minuteman statue is. You really have not made it to Boston.
No. And New York the same way. It's like, sure, there are some big streets, Fifth Ave and whatever, but a lot of those side streets they're showing you, and they're like, some people are going to have trouble throwing footballs across those things. No, that's not New York, because when they built those cities originally, they just followed the cows, at least in Boston. But
what did you think of the performances?
I'm sorry, again, what was the name of the actor who played Ruth?
That's Felicity Jones.
Thank you.
We know from Rogue One.
Rogue Warfare 1?
No. Star Wars, Rogue One, Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, nope, that didn't happen.
She played, what's her name? I actually don't remember the character's name.
It's Rey. I know it's not, but it is.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I saw her, it's like, why did you pick somebody who looks exactly like Rey? Yeah. Okay. In general, I thought she did fine, but her accent...
Now, yeah, I had a little trouble with the accent, but not because of the inconsistency.
Well, that too.
It was inconsistent, but honestly, this is what happens with a lot of people from working class backgrounds in New York. They have very strong this is true a lot of places. They often fight to cover up the accent. My father did that. My father, who was from New York and had underneath a very thick New York accent, spent his whole life erasing it, so it was almost undetectable, except occasionally, because they don't think it sounds classy, especially for academia or the law. So I could see with her accent coming out only when she gets upset. When she did it, it did sound a little Bugs Bunny-ish, Brooklyn Jewish woman. It's like, yeah, it's right. I'm from Brooklyn, yeah, and it was a little cartoony.
I didn't hear that. I just heard her dropping her R's, and it's like, where are you from?
No, the dropping the R's is fine.
But that's it. That's all I heard.
No, she did some of the tone occasionally, but again, it was not very consistent. It's a hard accent to do, and I imagine it's especially hard for an English person.
Is Felicity Jones Jewish?
Yeah, I don't believe so, no.
Okay. How about Armie?
Armie, I'm not sure.
No, I meant, what did you think of his performance? I'm going to guess Armie Hammer is not Jewish.
That is a serious, as we say, seriously goyish apunim there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought he did a nice job. He didn't have a lot to do. They didn't really explore a lot of the depth of Marty, except he comes across, again, when you can separate the performance from the actor, he comes across as very likable. And you just get the feeling this was one of the good ones. You just get the feeling he's a good guy.
Yeah, like you, I didn't believe it either.
yeah, but apparently he really was. I like the way he is with his daughter.
Yeah,
and the way he's very aware when the way people treat Ruth.
Mm-hmm. How about the daughter? I like her.
She's good. I hope she's going on to do more stuff.
Oh, I just meant the character.
I thought the actor was terrific, but the daughter is very cool, and yeah, and the actual. Character, the person, went on to become a law professor, I think, at Columbia.
Yes, she did. What I liked was that there's Ruth, a woman in a traditional man's job, trying her best, and she ends up going into academia, which is not where she wanted to go, but nobody would hire her because she's a woman. Stupid! And she's trying to show her, especially her female students, what the whole deal is with, racial inequality, or not racial, I'm sorry, sexual inequality, also racial inequality.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes home and she is pwned by her daughter, who basically says, yeah, you talk a good thing, but you don't do anything about it. And Ruth stands there and she's like,
yeah, she's got no answer.
No. And the sad thing is that poor Ruth is doing the best she can from within the system, which is sadly not as much as she could. And she is so capable and she is so smart. But her daughter, in essence, is right. And I think what Ruth, the great moment is Ruth realizes, oh yeah, she's actually out there. She's skipping school to go meet Gloria Steinem at a rally. She's not like hanging out with her friends and doing drugs. She's actually out there protesting.
Mm-hmm. I like that scene where they've just come from seeing the lawyer in Soho, and these construction workers are catcalling them, and Ruth is just going, just ignore them. And the daughter stomps over and yells, "Hey, you kiss your mother with that mouth, asshole!" Sorry, you'll have to bleep that.
Yes, I will. No bumpy bucks for you.
Yeah. And Ginsberg just looks at her in awe. She's like, "Oh my!" She's becoming exactly what I want her to become. She's becoming exactly what I wanted to become. She's not afraid. She's not cowed.
I think that's the point too. Is that she realizes that she didn't become what she thought she was. Like she realized that, like you said, her daughter was not only doing what she hoped her daughter would do, but something that she thought she had done and hadn't. And she's still cowed by not only men, but by this. I don't know if that scene's real or not, but it works well in the film.
And she does. And then she decides, I'm going to do something. And she takes the case, even though everyone is telling her not to.
Yeah. That was another little inaccuracy. Apparently, her pal there at the ACLU was on board with it.
Yeah.
He didn't like his depiction in the film, which is understandable because it looks like he's... Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a jerk.
But, there's considering how much there could have been played with, they really don't play with a lot. There's a little bit, and of course this guy gets the worst of it, although to be fair, he seems like a pretty open-minded guy. Apparently, there was an issue that he had at the ACLU, and Ruth was like, yeah, I'm not taking your side on that one, and it caused a rift between them.
But what kind of issue?
I don't remember. There was something internal that he did that he shouldn't have done. And basically it was not good for her career to side with him just because they were friends, because apparently he did whatever it was. And they never patched that up. I came across that in one of the articles. But again, that could easily have happened later on, so whatever.
Yeah. I think the performance in this are generally really good. I think they're very solid. I liked Stephen Root, who's almost unrecognizable as the Harvard law professor who's going on with the Solicitor General to fight against Bader Ginsberg.
Who's Stephen Root?
He was the law professor who kept not calling on her.
No, but who is he otherwise?
Well, let's see. I suppose one of the things he's most famous for is Office Space. He's you didn't get my red swing line stapler back on the set the building on fire. That's Stephen Root. He's done a lot. He does voice work. He's funny as hell. He is really clever. Wow.
He wasn't funny in this.
It's strange. It's always strange to see him. He's done a number of dramatic roles, and he's usually very good at it. He also, I think he's kind of underused. I think he's terrific.
Kathy Bates, we mentioned her. She's there for 5 seconds, but she's Kathy Bates. You're going to look at her and you're going to watch her, and I don't know. There's something very captivating about Kathy Bates.
She has incredible presence and incredible charisma,
and she obviously also isn't very tall.
She is also a diminutive woman, yes, because she's barely able to look Felicity Jones in the eye.
Yeah, which I didn't know, but it's like, well, we know how tall you are, and you're just looking at the top of her head, so okay.
Yep.
There's, of course, very interesting depictions of the times, which are sadly probably factually accurate. The level of misogyny is probably, if anything, underplayed.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be.
Which is damn sad. And I think the reason that I like this film is because you get somebody that we know, not because the film is telling us this, or because of some performance or some weird Hollywood happenstance. We have somebody we know is incredibly capable and basically not allowed to do anything.
And hearing some of the arguments, it's really interesting because the people who they're fighting against, and even the ACLU guy is saying that women's problem is we're trying to protect them. and that we're trying to keep them in these roles, and they're being cherished and they're being honored, and it's not that they're being oppressed. And she points out it's still a cage. And that's the saddest part, is it's not like straight up racism, because they don't actually believe, when they're confronted with what they're doing, they don't think they're doing anything wrong.
No.
They don't understand what the problem is. That's actually a really interesting thing that they bring up a bunch of times and they don't really address. They say, do you think that being a woman, that gender is the same thing as race? You think that that women are oppressed the same way that black people are oppressed? That's a really difficult question.
Well, the big problem was that she wanted to say yes, because oppression's oppression, because you're oppressing somebody that's different from you. The problem was if she strayed into something that wasn't the case that she was representing, is that it would automatically seal her failure. And even though she was like, but it's like, yeah, but if you do that, you're not going to win, and we're not going to make any steps forward. Because obviously in a ways it's worse, because no white old guy lawmakers are cherishing black people, right?
Yeah.
There was none of the laws were ever made to keep them safe. That was never the issue.
No, it was to keep everyone safe from them.
But you see things too, like when we only see one of her job interviews, but she doesn't get the job. You can see the guy, and at first I thought, oh, this is going to be her big break. This must be where she started. Because the guy is obviously interested. He's like, yeah, I bet you got taken down because of this, and you're angry. Go ahead, use that. And he's almost like coaching her in her own interview. And he finally comes back with, yep, I can't hire you because we're all men here and our wives might get jealous. And it's like, well, you could control yourself and not go after her like a pig.
Yeah, well, that's always the thing. It's like when they say, oh, yeah, well, women need to watch how they dress and watch how, you shouldn't drink too much and you shouldn't walk alone. It's like, well, really? Whose behavior needs to be altered here? How about maybe men don't assault women? How about that? Crazy. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But I like when she's giving the examples about how, like, well, one partner I talked to said, well, he does a lot of his networking in the locker room, and that would leave me out of the loop. And another one said women were too emotional to be lawyers, and that was the one where women. There was some state, was it Idaho, where estates could only be managed by men because women were bad at math.
Oh, right, yeah. Sure. I think they actually have proven, if anything, statistically, if you have to give somebody an edge, actually women are better than math.
Yeah, apparently they are.
Yeah. And of course, that's all BS anyway. Anybody might be particularly good at anything. It has nothing to do with, it may have something to do with your background if you've been given the opportunities for education and stuff, but as far as having an aptitude, it's not based on anything. Although there was a very interesting article, because there's a stereotype about how Chinese kids are better at math than, say, their Western counterparts. Turns out that is partially true, but it has to do with the way that numbers are represented. They're actually, the way we represent them makes it harder for us to physically multiply them and add them, whereas the numeric system in Chinese, apparently, it's much easier to carry that out. And so it's like, oh, well, if it's a cultural thing, I get that. I thought that's another reference to that guy whose name I can't remember, who wrote that book, whose name is really interesting.
Oh, the guy who wrote that book that time.
No, The Tipping Point.
Oh, The Tipping Point. Okay, I don't remember who wrote that, but I know
can't
what
either,
you mean.
And I've read all of his books multiple times, and I could see his Malcolm Gladwell. Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, hey, there's you want an interesting book? Read stuff by Malcolm Gladwell. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's amazing some of the stuff they come up. There were arguments about allowing black people into the military, especially for night missions, because it was known that black people had poorer night sight. This is based on. Hang on, I've got it here. Oh yeah, nothing.
I figured it was because, as everyone knows, black people tend not to eat many carrots, I guess.
That would have been, I can hear, white supremacists jotting that down.
Yeah, well, of course, the best thing about that is that was actually a lie. I loved hearing about that. Do you know about the whole lie about the carrots?
Oh, yes, that carrots supposedly gave you better night sight, but that was actually propaganda from the British.
The British, because they didn't want people to know about radar. They wanted to think that the British actually had better night sight because they'd been eating carrots. So that's where that whole thing came from. That's hilarious.
Oh, no. I remember on Gilligan's Island when Mary Ann ate the radioactive carrots and she developed super telescopic vision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never understood. That part I didn't get because it should have given her super night sight. Duh.
Yeah, that was the problem with that episode. Radioactive carrots.
Vegetables. Yes,
some of the other arguments, too, about women and equal rights for women, if we give them, that will be, and I quote this from the film, the collapse of our society.
Oh, God, yeah, they were saying that, like, all, marriages would all end, children would be coming home to empty homes.
And that actually brings up a question I wanted to ask you, because that did pop up for me. Were you a latchkey kid?
A latchkey kid, like coming home not
you had
having
your own
a mom.
key? Yeah, in grade school.
I don't think I was allowed to have my own key until middle school, because I kept losing things. No, I would come home and mom would be there.
So yeah, they talked about the demise of the American family. Economics would take care of that anyway, because the whole thing was the man could go and work and the woman would stay home. Yeah, by 1970, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were divorced when I was 7, and my mother was working, but she worked her schedule around so that she was home. But yeah, it was tricky.
Yeah, no, I was a latchkey kid. We would come. I mean, we had to wait till I was old enough, but I would say 10. 11, I would come home, and I mean, it was definitely 4th grade, which would have been 10. My sister, of course, she's 3 years older, so that helped. But I would come home with my own key, and mom would get home eventually and, do the mom thing, because dad certainly wasn't going to cook. And that just was the way things were, because you couldn't make enough to live off one salary. Those days were over. And, the idea that it had anything to do with women getting to work as opposed to having to work is just so laughable. And, of course, the whole thing about the cherishing women and keeping them... How about you actually ask one?
It's like if a woman... it's not the idea that, you don't want to be a wife and mother? Well, maybe this woman wants to be a wife and mother, and this woman doesn't.
No.
It's like... It's that whole, as she says, women are not a monolith any more than black people are a monolith. People always say, I can't believe, in this country, women are 51% of the population. Why haven't we had a female president? It's like you're assuming all women vote the same way, and they don't.
Well, it also depends on the candidate, too, right? Because who's allowed to be a candidate, and if... it's like, it's a woman, but if it's not a woman anybody actually wants, it's the same thing as if it's a guy nobody actually wants. They don't get voted in. Or something weird happens and, we won't talk about that. There's just all this stuff. And the thing that kills me, too, is that when women were finally allowed to do some of the things that they're allowed to, be a scientist, for example, at which they're really good. A lot of them were just like, and I want to be a mother. And they did that, too. I mean, Ruth in this film, she's a mom. She has 2 kids, and they learned very early on. Don't let Ruth cook. No. Apparently, that was true.
Apparently, both of those that A, she was a terrible cook, and B, he was a great cook.
Yeah. Women can do anything. That's the answer. They can do anything, just like anybody can do anything. So knock it off. There, we solved it.
Yeah, how about that? Yes, we here at Max Mike Movies have solved the problem of gender inequality. Yeah. You're welcome. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What do you like trial movies in general, the courtroom sort of movies?
Courtroom movies have actually been kind of spoiled for me.
Huh?
Because I've actually been in one.
But you've been in a courtroom movie?
No, been in a courtroom.
Oh, okay.
I have been called for jury duty more than anybody I know, including my mother, who was finally called in her 70s and was able to say, no, I'm having some sort of procedure and never had to go. I've been called in 3 states, one of which I didn't even live in at the time. Ooh. I've been called as a witness in 2 separate trials. One of them I didn't actually have to witness. That's a verb, isn't it? Yeah.
Sure.
And the other one I did. And the lawyer who called me Didn't even know why he had called me as a witness, and I had to rephrase his questions to me so that they would actually make sense.
Oh, dear.
I gotta tell you, courtroom is really boring. Really, really boring. It all looks so nice and dramatic and like, oh, look at these points and everyone's tense and on edge and everyone's saying really erudite. No. No. Now, Ruth, I'm sure that would have been something to see, but that's a rarity. So for me, having been to court too many times, never for my own, like I never did anything, but having been to court too many times.
You mean you were never caught?
Bumpy bucks are real. They're not counterfeit. No. So for me, they don't have a particular draw. How about you?
I like them, intellectually. I think some of them are really well done. I can't take the tension. They just really get me right. I get too wound up. More so than like thrillers or murder mysteries or any of that. There's something about just sitting there listening to the lawyers make the argument. Like when the bad guy lawyer is up, I just want to grab him and slap the crap out of him. No, I get too worked up. Mm-hmm. I think they're good. I think a lot of them are good, but they're just too hard to watch.
Did you have that problem with this movie?
Not really, because very little of it actually takes place in a courtroom.
Right, pretty much just the end.
Yeah, just the last really 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So no, that didn't bother me. I don't mind movies about the legal system or about lawyers or judges or what have you, but actual courtroom dramas, they get me nuts.
The only thing I had was that I didn't know the history. My feeling was, yeah, she makes her point, and we're near the end of the film, she wins. But I thought she'd got a job too, and it's like, why won't you? She's the top of her class in 2 very well-respected law schools. She was on the law review for both. No, really. So I wasn't sure. I was basically intellectually, I was like, yeah, she wins, but emotionally, I wasn't sure. But I wanted her to win, and that was the thing. Is like, and they make her stumble and stuff, and it's like, ah. So. Some of our other questions we have to get to before we get to the end. What do we know about Ruth from this movie, the person?
Quite a bit. I think we get a nice picture of who she is and who she was. I don't know. It's not as complete as it could be because we see, in effect, a fairly short section of her life. It's only like, 3-4 years total.
You said short.
Yeah.
Well,
that's true. I mean, her daughter's like 15, so we know that much time has passed, but we don't see a lot of it.
It's about 16. We start in 54.
Yeah, and then goes to about
71.
Yeah,
17 years.
Yeah, we see some, but I mean, I hope that there would be another movie about when she starts becoming who she became. Yeah. She starts doing she enters the Supreme Court. And she makes these landmark rulings and helps with the decisions. When she joined the Supreme Court, she was considered a moderate, but the court ended up going so far to the right. She was considered one of the more liberal judges.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think we get a fair amount about her and about what drove her. What did you think?
Definitely as a person, although as it turns out, I'm a little disappointed that we find out that they made her flub, just for dramatic purposes when she didn't do that. I both get it, and I still wish they hadn't done it.
Yeah, you can see it. Overcoming obstacles is a big dramatic tool.
Yeah. I felt in the beginning, as I said, my notes had Hallmark and Movie of the Week, because it's like they really throw on the misogyny in the beginning. Like, they take every opportunity to show what was going on. The sad part is, as I realized later, is like we probably weren't even seeing a quarter of it.
Yeah, it was probably underplayed.
Yeah, especially at Harvard. No offense, Harvard, but yeah. So I think we learn a good basis of probably where she came from, right? Like you said, if she became more, originally a moderate and became more of a considered a liberal, that's interesting. The other question is, do we feel we get to know the subject better after having watched this?
Definitely. I knew very little about her personally. I knew some of her. I knew something about her as a Supreme Court justice. I didn't know really anything about her before that.
Mostly what I knew was when she was getting old and getting frail and then was diagnosed with cancer, the one thing I knew was, no!
Yeah.
So, it was nice to learn a little bit more about somebody who, quite honestly, should have been hailed a lot more than she even was, I think. That's my big questions. Have you got any other questions, or have we got to all your notes?
I think we got through everything, yeah. On the whole, yeah, I think so. I was about to start summing up the movie, but we're...
I think instead...
Yes.
We should sum up the movie. The Roundup.
That's crazy, but it just might work.
So, Max.
Yeah.
Had you seen this before?
I had never seen this. I'd only heard of it.
And what did you think?
I think it's nice. I don't think it's a masterpiece. I don't think it's as powerful as some of the other ones we've seen. I don't think it's quite as emotionally engaging. It's interesting intellectually, and it's nice to learn all this stuff. As you say, it feels, regardless of how accurate it may be, you're right, it feels very polished and very Hollywood, and it's just a little too smooth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, and it made it less gripping, I think. What did you think?
Pretty much the same. It's so weird to come across a film that's pretty factually accurate, and you're still going, right?
And it's good performances, and the dialogue is good, and the writing is decent. But it's interesting, but
I mean, it also has I don't know if there is another biopic that does this. It's got the actual person in it. And
I don't know. I thought there was somewhere maybe the person shows up at the end.
I don't think it happens often.
I can't think of any.
They do it after they're dead.
Anybody know of any? Are there any biopics where the subject actually makes an appearance in the movie?
In the grate, in the ashtray.
We're in shot at all times.
So Miss Monroe was in fact not in the film.
Not as such, no.
Just seeing her at the very end, she looks like somebody I'd get out of the way of.
Yeah.
There's just presence about that person, even though you see her for it's got to be 5 seconds
if
she just walks into the courtroom. So I'm glad I watched it. I don't think it's a great film. It was not award worthy. The performances were good, but they weren't outstandingly good. But I think it was important to see something about this lost treasure, really, this national treasure.
Yeah.
Not that kind of national treasure.
I'm gonna steal the Statue of Liberty.
There's a solid gold Ginsberg. Yeah. If you want to know more about R.B.G. and you want to see something that's a lot less Hollywood than it could have been, although I think there's actually a movie out there called R.B.G.
Yeah, that's an actual documentary.
Sure. Go ahead. It's fine.
I think so. But
poll question and how to get in touch with us.
Yes, we have our business. And of course, you can always find us. Now, if you do want to answer our poll question, which is once again, what movie do you wish had never had a sequel or sequels?
And Rogue Warfare is not the correct answer.
Well, technically that's true because as far as, at least not yet, we have not had a Rogue Warfare 4.
Yeah. I don't
fingers crossed. You can answer this by going to our website at maxmikemovies.com and leaving a comment. That's also where our back catalog of all our historically archived episodes are. You can also email us at our famous web email address, us@maxmikemovies.com. You can tweet Mike directly. You can also find us on Twitter or Facebook. Also
you can try. I don't have a Twitter account.
Max Mike Movies. You can, of course, listen to us on the podcast app of your choice. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. I think that's it.
Yeah.
So what are we watching next week?
Well, before we get to that, there is something I'd like to do. We haven't done this in a long time, and I think it's far overdue.
Okay.
I would just like to apologize.
Well, I think that's about time. I'm glad you've done this week. The healing can begin. What are you apologizing for?
Nothing really, but we haven't done it in a while, so
That's
I kind
true.
of thought we probably
Oh, you just kind of
should.
missed it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We're very, very sorry.
Very sorry. Yeah,
Really.
sorry.
I try not, well, we won't do it again.
No, whatever it was.
But,
yeah.
What are we going to watch next week?
Next week, I'd like to get ahead. As in, what's that in the road? Ahead?
Cricket. Chirp, chirp.
Now, you're supposed to ask me.
And what the heck is that incredibly clumsy lead-in for?
That's not the question. You're supposed to say, how far ahead do you want to
I'm
get?
sorry. How far ahead?
Miles ahead.
My sides.
Oh, we crack each other up. Ha, ha, ha. It's all so jovial.
The fun we have.
No, I would like to watch the Don Cheadle film, Miles Ahead, partially because I think it's a film that really went under the radar. But it is about Miles Davis, more or less.
Kind of.
Kind of. And we would like to answer
there is a character named Miles Davis in it.
But we would like to answer the question, when is a biopic not a biopic? And I think next week it might just go a little like this.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.